Welcome to Faces Friday. In my very first Instagram post, I talked about knowing our children, knowing our students. Last week, I talked about our beliefs and understandings. Do we really believe all of our children and our students can learn? And what are the questions we need to be asking our children, our students, and ensuring that we have a growth mindset to believe all children will and can learn? This week, I'd like to explore those questions that we can ask students and our own children. There are 5 questions. I like 5. And actually, these questions pertain to our learning, as well as asking our children these questions. And they are, what are you learning and why? Why are you learning that? The second question is, how are you doing in that learning? And the third one is, how do you know how you're doing? The fourth one is, how can you improve? And finally, where do you go if you're stuck? Where do you go for help? These 5 questions are great questions for our kids, also for our students in classrooms, and they tell us the specificity of the teaching and the clear understanding our students have of what they're learning and how to be successful. As teachers, we also have 5 questions, and here they are. What am I teaching? Why am I teaching it? How am I going to teach it? How will I know if my students have learned it? And what if they haven't? And the 5th question is, what's next? If this teaching works, and if it doesn't work, what are my next steps? And where do I go for help as a teacher? Finally, I have 5 questions for parents to ask their children. And instead of saying, what did you do in school today? And you usually get the response, nothing. Try asking these questions. Asking them, what are you learning? How are you doing? How do you know how you're doing? Where do you go for help if you're stuck? And how can you improve on your learning? And what are you most proud of? Finally, I'd like to talk to you about 5 questions that parents can ask their teachers. The teachers ask the teachers of their children. What is my child learning? How is she or he doing? How do you know how she's doing? How can he or she improve? And finally, really importantly, what supports can I provide you? And what can you provide if my child is struggling? And then consider asking, when will we check back in again? So these 5 questions are really important to us as teachers, as leaders, and also as parents. So remember, don't ask your children, what did you do in school today? Ask them what they're learning. How did they do? Was there anything they didn't understand? How could they get better at what they're learning? And finally, ask them, what are you most proud of in your schoolwork today? Thanks very much for joining me. I'll see you next Friday for another Faces Friday.